Alright, so it's 2026 and Enshrouded is still in early access, but getting ready for its full release this autumn. If you're wondering whether this is worth your time and money right now, I'm going to cover everything you need to know. What the game actually is, how it plays, what's been added since launch, what works, what doesn't, and where this game is heading. The short answer is that this is one of those rare early access games that showed up already working, instead of being a mess of promises. And it's only gotten better. What makes this game stand out is that the world is handcrafted, rather than randomly generated. The building system lets you terraform pretty much everything, and the combat actually has some depth. There is of course also this poisonous fog called the Shroud, that creates real tension when you explore instead of just being an annoyance. So here's how it works. You wake up from some kind of stasis pod in a world that's been consumed by this corrupting fog. Your job is to explore, build a base, rescue survivors who give you access to different crafting stations, and gradually push back the Shroud by destroying these root things that spread it. The core mechanic focuses on these flame altars. These create safe bubbles where the fog can't hurt you, and you place them around the map to expand your territory and create fast travel points. The world is split into different biomes, each of course with its own resources, enemies, and challenges. You start in the Springlands, which is pretty standard fantasy forest stuff, then move through jungle areas, deserts, snowy mountains, and eventually a tropical water region. Each new region requires better gear because the enemies get tougher, and some biomes have environmental dangers like freezing cold that will kill you if you're not prepared. Combat is where this game surprised the people and myself the most, because survival games usually treat fighting as an afterthought, but in this game you've got dodging, parrying, different weapon types that actually feel distinct, and bosses with real mechanics, rather than them just being damage sponges. You can go full melee with swords and axes, play as an archer or spec into magic. The skill tree lets you mix things up too, so you could be a battle mage or a tanky fighter, or really whatever combination works for you. The enemies have levels and you need to respect that. If you go into a high level zone early on, you definitely will get killed fast. Now the building system is probably the biggest draw here. This game is not as simple as simply snapping pre-made pieces together. The game allows you to literally dig into mountains, flatten terrain, create underground bases, or build massive castles on cliff sides. Everything is voxel based, which means you can shape the world however you want. The game also has this magic chest system where materials stored in certain chests become available for crafting anywhere in your base, which saves a ton of time running back and forth. Though please keep in mind that the inventory management can still be tedious, because there are many different resource types. Water was added in a major update and it's surprisingly well done. You can now create rivers by carving out shorelines, set up drainage systems, build underwater bases, and make irrigation for your crops. There's a drain item that sucks up water and a dispenser that creates water, so you can do some creative stuff with flowing water through your base. The physics work properly too. The water flows downhill, equalizes to the right height, and also creates actual currents. Progression happens through several systems. You level up from combat and exploration, which gives skill points to spend in the skill tree. You upgrade your flame altar by collecting specific items, which then unlocks new regions and increases the safe zone size. You rescue NPCs who provide crafting stations, so their survivors actually matter in this game. For example, there's a blacksmith for weapons and armor, an alchemist for potions, a carpenter for building materials, and more. Each one has quests that unlock better recipes and equipment. The crafting tiers make sense and follow a natural progression from basic stone tools to copper, bronze, iron, steel, and finally gilded equipment. One thing worth knowing is that death has consequences. When you die, you create a tombstone at that location with some of your items, and you respawn at the last beacon you touched. Sometimes this means a long run back to retrieve your stuff, and if you die multiple times it can get frustrating. You can adjust this in the world settings though, along with things like weapon durability, which is always nice because not everyone wants the same level of challenge. The game supports 16-player co-op, which is pretty rare for this genre. Building together works well, and having friends along for boss fights and dungeon runs makes things more manageable. There's also a glider you get early on that makes exploration feel really good. Now for some negatives, though keep in mind these are subjective. The storage system can get frustrating for players, because you end up with tons of different materials and managing multiple chests gets old. The magic chest helps, but doesn't solve it completely. Then some of the dungeons, particularly these things called hollow halls, can take you hours to complete, and can feel tedious with wave after wave of enemies and puzzles. The enemy variety could be better as well. You fight a lot of the same basic types, just with different stats in each region. Now the development situation is actually solid here for once. The team at Keen Games has been consistently constantly updating and improving the game since launch. And that does not simply include fixing bugs. They are adding real content and polish based on the player feedback. A smaller update is coming in spring 2026, focused on quality of life improvements and an adventure sharing feature that lets you share your creations with other players. The game's full release is planned for autumn 2026, which is gonna add more map areas, improved combat, better enemy AI, and a console version. They have also said development will continue after release, with both free updates and paid expansions. Visually, the game looks good with a stylized art direction that holds up pretty well. Each biome has its own identity and there are some genuinely beautiful views, especially in the snowy mountains and tropical water areas. Performance is good, but the shader compilation can cause stuttering, which their developers have acknowledged and are working on. So in the end, if you like survival games with actual combat depth, very extensive building systems, and co-op play, then yes, you probably should buy this in 2026, even before its 1.0 release. It's already in a state that feels like full release. People are already putting hundreds of hours into this. Their developers are reliable, and the game keeps getting better instead of being abandoned. It's buy to play with no microtransactions or live service nonsense. The main downsides are really the inventory management issues and some grindy elements. At this point, it's one of the more complete and polished early access survival games you can get, and worth the full release coming this year. It's a pretty safe bet if the genre interests you at all. And this sentence concludes today's video. If your time was respected, a like or comment is very much appreciated.